Instructors told a school cleaner's daughter to play guitar as a joke. Then regret hit instantly. When shy, soft-spoken 14-year-old Harper Quinn walked into the school auditorium clutching an old scratched-up guitar, the instructors could barely hide their smirks. She was the daughter of a school janitor. What could she possibly know about music? They called her up just to amuse themselves. But what happened the moment her fingers touched the strings silenced the entire room. No one moved. No one breathed, because what they heard next was not what anyone expected. In that moment, their laughter turned into shock, and regret hit harder than they could have ever imagined. Before we start, like this video and comment where you're watching from. Your support helps us bring more powerful stories. Now let's begin. Harper Quinn was used to being invisible. At 14, she was nothing more than the quiet daughter of the janitor at Westview High School. Every day, while other kids walked in with their new backpacks, shiny shoes, and a sense of belonging, Harper carried nothing but the weight of being an outsider. Her father, John Quinn, had worked at the school for years, maintaining the halls and keeping the place clean. He was kind-hearted, hard-working, and well-liked, but no one noticed Harper, except to make fun of her. One fateful morning, Harper found herself standing in the school auditorium, a place she had never truly felt at home. Her fingers nervously gripped the old weathered guitar that had been her father's pride. It was scratched, stained, and missing a few strings, but to Harper, it was everything. She had spent countless hours playing it in the corner of her room, trying to escape the harsh reality of her life. She dreamed of performing, of being seen, of having someone notice her for more than just the janitor's daughter. The instructors were gathered at the front of the room, preparing for another rehearsal. They had no idea who Harper was. To them, she was just another background figure, nothing more than a lowly janitor's kid. One of the teachers, Mr. Benson, a strict middle-aged man with a quick wit and a smug smile, spotted her from across the room. A thought flashed in his mind, and with a snide grin, he called out to her. "Hey, Harper," he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "We're looking for some entertainment. Why don't you show us what you got? I bet you could play something, or at least try." The other teachers laughed. They assumed it was harmless fun. After all, she had never shown any interest in music before, let alone in front of a group. Harper's cheeks turned bright red. Her heart pounded in her chest as she took a step forward, clutching the guitar tighter than ever. The moment she sat down in front of the class, she could hear the quiet chuckles in the background. They thought it was a joke. She thought it was a joke too. But what they didn't know was that Harper Quinn had a secret, one that no one could have predicted. With shaking hands, Harper closed her eyes for just a moment and began to play. At first, it was just a few tentative notes, almost shy, as if she was testing the waters. But then something changed. She felt the strings vibrating under her fingertips, and the melody flowed out like a river breaking free from a dam. It was raw, it was powerful, and it was undeniably beautiful. Her fingers danced across the fretboard effortlessly, playing a piece she had learned from watching videos online late at night. The room fell silent. The once laughing instructors froze, their mouths hanging open in disbelief. Harper's music wasn't just good, it was captivating. It had a depth, a soul that no one expected from someone like her. The laughter that had filled the room moments ago was replaced by stunned silence. Her music filled the space, echoing off the walls as if each note was striking at the heart of everyone present. For the first time in her life, Harper Quinn was not just the janitor's daughter. She was Harper Quinn, the musician, and she was taking everyone by surprise. The room remained frozen, as if time itself had stopped. The teachers, who moments ago had laughed at her, now watched in complete silence, mesmerized by the sound of Harper's guitar. Even Mr. Benson, who had been so quick to mock her, stood motionless, his face a mask of disbelief. The notes hung in the air, each one more hauntingly beautiful than the last. Harper's fingers moved with a confidence that didn't match her quiet demeanor. She had always felt overlooked, ignored, but here in this moment, she felt something else, something powerful. It wasn't just the music, it was the feeling behind it. The pain of always being in the background, the years of feeling invisible, poured out of her with every note. Each strum was a release, a declaration that she had something to offer, something no one had ever bothered to see. The room was no longer a place of judgment. It was her stage, and for the first time in her life, she was the star. The silence that enveloped the auditorium was deafening. It was the kind of silence that makes your heart race because you know something extraordinary is happening. Harper's music filled every corner of the room, drowning out everything else. For a brief moment, she let herself believe that this was it, that this was her time. The dream she had been carrying for years, the dream of being seen, of being heard, was becoming real. And then, as if the universe itself was playing along, she hit a single chord, one that rang out louder than the rest. It was a chord that seemed to pierce the air, vibrating in the bones of everyone in the room. That single note, that one moment, made everything else fade away. It was as if everyone in the auditorium had suddenly woken up from a trance. The teachers, who had been expecting nothing more than a joke, now stood with their mouths agape. Their faces were a mixture of astonishment, confusion, and, most powerful of all, regret. Regret that they had ever doubted her. Regret that they had ever mocked her. Regret that they had assumed she was nothing more than the janitor's daughter. Mr. Benson, who had been the first to make fun of her, shifted uncomfortably. His pride, which had been so easily inflated moments ago, now felt like a balloon slowly deflating. His eyes, once filled with amusement, were now filled with guilt. It was as if the weight of his own arrogance had just landed squarely on his shoulders. Harper's talent had shaken him to his core, and for the first time, he realized how wrong he had been. But it wasn't just him. The other instructors stood as if paralyzed, caught in a moment they hadn't expected. They were seeing Harper Quinn in a way they had never considered before. No longer was she just the janitor's daughter. She was a young, talented musician who had something incredible to offer. Their laughter had been replaced by a humbling silence, and in that silence Harper could hear the whispers of her own thoughts. Could they see her now? Could they finally recognize her for who she truly was? Harper's fingers moved once more, and the music seemed to grow more intense. Every note now felt like a message to the world that she would no longer stay hidden in the shadows. It was her moment, and she wasn't about to let anyone take it away from her. For the first time in her life, Harper Quinn was more than just the janitor's daughter. She was the girl who had captivated a room full of people with nothing more than her talent, and in that moment, everything had changed. The moment Harper finished her last note, the silence in the room was so thick, it felt suffocating. Her fingers rested on the strings of the guitar, but she couldn't bring herself to look up. She wasn't sure if she was scared of what she might see, or if she simply didn't want to face the truth of the world that had suddenly shifted around her. But the truth was undeniable. In that single beautiful moment, everything had changed. It wasn't the applause that filled her ears. It was the sound of the teacher's footsteps as they hesitated, unsure of what to say. The first one to break the silence was Mrs. Thompson, the music instructor. Her expression had softened, her usual stern demeanor replaced with something new, something she didn't expect. "Harper, that was incredible," Mrs. Thompson said, her voice shaking slightly, almost as if she couldn't believe the words were coming out of her mouth. "Where did you learn to play like that?" Harper hesitated. The answer was simple. At home, in the quiet of her room, when no one was watching. She had never been trained, never had the opportunity to take music lessons like the other kids. She had simply taught herself piece by piece, learning from videos and listening to the music that spoke to her soul. But she couldn't say that, not now. It felt too vulnerable, too raw. I, I just learned," Harper stammered, her voice barely audible. I've been playing for a while." The teachers looked at each other, still trying to process what had just happened. Mr. Benson, who had been so quick to mock her earlier, now stood with his hands in his pockets, his posture awkward and uneasy. The cocky grin that had once defined his face was gone, replaced with something much more humble. I'm, I'm sorry, Mr. Benson muttered, his voice quieter than usual. I didn't think, I didn't realize. Harper didn't know how to respond. She had never expected an apology from him, let alone this kind of acknowledgement. He had spent so many years making her feel invisible, and now in this moment, she wasn't sure what to do with the power she suddenly held. She had proven them wrong, but it wasn't just about proving them wrong. It was about proving to herself that she wasn't just the janitor's daughter. She was more than that. She had always been more. Before she could say anything, Mrs. Thompson spoke again, this time with more enthusiasm. You need to perform for the school. We need to hear more from you, Harper. That was, that was incredible. The words hit her like a wave, and for the first time in a long time, she felt the weight of her own potential. What if she really could do this? What if she could step into the spotlight and claim the future that had always seemed so far out of reach? She had never considered it, but now as the teachers continued to whisper excitedly among themselves, she realized she couldn't keep hiding in the shadows. Harper looked down at the guitar, her hands still trembling from the power of her performance. It wasn't just the music that had shaken the room. It was her. She had stepped into the light, and she couldn't go back. No matter how much fear lingered in her heart, no matter how impossible it seemed, she knew she had to take this chance. She had just shown the world who she truly was, and now the world was starting to see her. But the question that lingered in her mind was, could she really live up to the expectations now? Could she handle the pressure of being seen? As the teachers gathered around her, offering support and encouragement, Harper's heart raced. This wasn't just the beginning of a new chapter. It was the start of a new life. But the road ahead was uncertain, and she couldn't help but wonder, was she truly ready for what was coming next? The following days felt like a blur to Harper. She couldn't escape the weight of the attention she had suddenly received. Everywhere she went, teachers and students looked at her differently. There was a sense of admiration, respect even, but it felt overwhelming. She wasn't used to being noticed, let alone being praised. Mrs. Thompson had insisted on meeting with Harper every day after class, guiding her, helping her refine her skills. At first, Harper had felt uncomfortable, unsure of how to handle such a sudden shift in her life. She had spent so many years in the background, quietly doing her job as the janitor's daughter, just trying to survive. But now everything had changed. It wasn't just about the music anymore. It was about the power that music had given her, a voice, a presence, something she had never thought possible. For the first time, she felt like she was being seen for who she truly was, not just for the role she played in the background of other people's lives. But with this newfound attention came the pressure to perform. Harper had always been a perfectionist, but now the stakes felt higher. Every note she played was under scrutiny. Every performance had to be flawless. She began practicing late into the night, pushing herself harder than she ever had before. It was both exciting and terrifying, a rush of adrenaline that left her exhausted, but craving more. But just when she thought she had it all figured out, the unexpected happened. One afternoon, as Harper was walking down the hallway, she overheard a conversation between a group of teachers. They were talking about her, but not in the way she had hoped. I just don't know if she can handle it, one of the teachers said. She's so talented, but she's never been in the spotlight like this. What if she cracks under the pressure? Harper froze, the words piercing her like a knife. She had never felt so exposed in her life. The admiration, the respect, the excitement, it had all turned into a burden she wasn't sure she could carry. She wasn't sure if she was ready for the pressure of performing at the level everyone expected from her. What if they were right? What if she couldn't live up to it? Her heart raced, and for the first time in a long time, she felt the weight of doubt creeping in. She wanted to run, to hide, to go back to the safety of being invisible, but she couldn't. Not anymore. The music room had become her sanctuary, her escape from the pressure, but it also became her battleground. Every time she sat down with her guitar, the doubts returned, whispering in her ear. She pushed through it, telling herself she had to keep going. But every note felt heavier than the last. It wasn't just about playing anymore. It was about proving herself, not to the teachers, not to her classmates, but to herself. She had come so far, but now she was afraid that everything she had worked for might slip away. She had to prove she was strong enough to handle this, strong enough to embrace the spotlight and all the challenges that came with it. But as the days went on, Harper began to realize something. She wasn't alone in this. The teachers, though they had their doubts, were also rooting for her. Mrs. Thompson wasn't just teaching her how to play, she was teaching her how to believe in herself. The other students, too, started offering their support, cheering her on during rehearsals and telling her how amazing she was. It was like they were all in this together, helping each other reach the top. Harper couldn't afford to let her doubts control her anymore. She had a choice. She could let fear hold her back, or she could face it head on and rise above it. She knew the journey ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time, she was ready to take it. The music was her voice, and she wasn't about to silence it now. The final performance was approaching. Harper could feel it in the pit of her stomach, anxiety mixed with excitement, an electric current coursing through her veins. Everything had been building up to this moment, and it felt like the weight of the world was on her shoulders. But as she stood backstage, guitar in hand, the reality of what she had accomplished hit her. This wasn't just about playing the guitar anymore. It was about showing the world that she was more than just the janitor's daughter. She was a force to be reckoned with. The auditorium was packed. Hundreds of eyes were watching, some skeptical, others eager, but all waiting for her to prove herself. As the spotlight illuminated the stage, Harper took a deep breath, stepping out into the center. The room fell silent. Her heart raced, but her hands were steady. She could feel the vibrations of the guitar strings before her fingers even touched them. As her first note rang out, something inside her shifted. It was like all the doubts, all the fear, and all the pressure disappeared. For that brief moment, it was just her and the music. Every note, every chord felt like it was telling her story. The story of a girl who had once been invisible, but now here she was, standing in the spotlight, louder than ever. The crowd began to respond, slowly at first. A few nods, a few smiles, but then it grew. The applause, the cheers, the standing ovation, it was overwhelming. Harper couldn't believe it. She had done it. She had not only played the guitar, she had played her heart out. But it wasn't just the audience's reaction that filled her with pride. It was the moment she saw Mrs. Thompson's face in the crowd, tears welling up in her eyes, pride radiating from her every feature. In that instant, Harper knew that it wasn't just about being noticed. It was about finding the strength to believe in herself, no matter how many people doubted her along the way. As she finished the last note, the room erupted into applause. She stood there, guitar in hand, breathless, her heart pounding. It felt like the entire world was applauding her, but it wasn't just the performance that had earned their applause. It was the journey, the late nights, the struggles, the battles with doubt that had led to this moment. Harper had done what no one thought she could. She had stepped into the spotlight, faced her fears, and come out stronger. She had proven that no matter where you come from, no matter what your past is, you have the power to change your future. She wasn't just the janitor's daughter anymore. She was a musician, a force, someone who had earned her place in the world. As the last of the applause faded, Harper stepped down from the stage, a smile spreading across her face. It wasn't just about the victory. It was about everything she had become. And in that moment, she knew that this was only the beginning. Her journey had just begun, and there were no limits to what she could achieve now. With her guitar still in hand, Harper looked around the auditorium, her heart full of gratitude. She had started out as a girl with a dream, but now she was a girl with a purpose that no one could ever take away from her.